What's up, everybody? We're back with another episode of Bullish Chips, where we use a proven and repeatable strategy to make money every day. This channel happens to focus on the Bullish Semiconductor ETF, which goes by the ticker symbol SOXL. But the charting method and the trading method that we use can be implemented with any company that's publicly traded in the U.S. stock market. So make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe and notification buttons as well. That way you're alerted when we release new videos. We do enjoy interacting in the comment section as well. So if you want to drop any comments in the comment section of the videos, make sure you do that as well. Now the nightly and weekend videos, like tonight's video, mostly identify triggers and targets for trades ranging from scalps and intraday trades, but we do go all the way up to swing and leap trades as well. So if you want to deeper dive into exactly how we set up our charts, because we don't really go through that in these videos. If you want to know how we set up the charts, broadening formations, levels of support, resistance, things of that nature, make sure you check out the bonus content on our YouTube page. We got a couple of videos that dive deeper into that for you. And if you are not familiar with the STRAT, make sure you check out the description of this video. We've got a link to a free quick reference PDF guide for you here. Gives you all the basics of the STRAT and get you up and running there. So I do encourage you to watch the full video. We do go over triggers and targets, but like I said, we go over all time frames and give some pretty good insight. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the agenda for today's video. First, we'll go ahead and recap the price action from Wednesday, February 4th, before we zoom out like we always do and take a look at the week, month, quarter, and year price action. Then we'll zoom back in to set the 4-hour markers and the triggers and targets for Thursday, February 5th, along with a quick review of the triggers and targets for the week, month, quarter, and year as well. So let's go ahead and go to the charts, starting out with the 5-minute chart like we always do. This allows us to capitalize on our proven and repeatable strategy for scalps early in the morning or early entries into longer day trades, right? So the rule is you look for the opening print or the first traded price of the day, and you watch price action from there, right? If you get any higher lows at or above opening print, you want to look to get into calls targeting overnight high and previous high a day. If you get a lower high at or below opening print, you want to look to get into puts, targeting overnight low and previous low a day, right? So here we have today's price action on the 5-minute. If you remember, we did have a couple of calls that we swung overnight. They were up. Obviously, we got them at the bottom yesterday, so they were up by the time market closed. And our exit strategy this morning was basically gap fill, right? Previous low a day. If price dropped below the previous low a day, obviously we're back in that gap, this blue shaded area, and that can always build momentum to continue that the push to the downside. So we did get lucky in that first 5-minute candle. It didn't actually go below previous low a day. It pushed up, and we ended up getting a lower high, right? So if we pull up Friday's price action, all right, this is the end of Friday's price action. See, we've got a high here, right? Because we have the 2 down to start out the day today, and then we push back up and locked in a lower high here. This high is lower than that high, so that is a lower high on the day, and we are right at opening print. Now, this is where, if you're familiar with the channel, you can throw a little nuance in, right? The lower high doesn't have to be exactly under opening print or drastically below under opening print. If it is at opening print, and especially if you can use some other trigger like a lower high on that 5-minute time frame, then that can be your entry there, right? Now there's obviously a little bit more risk just because you are, especially with this one, we bought literally right at opening print. So there is always that opportunity for price to, kind of peak back below opening print. Maybe it could have, found some support off of overnight low and then taken back off, right? Not a big deal. Would have just stopped out once price got above this lower high. Small loss wouldn't be that big of a deal, but that is the added risk that you take as opposed to waiting till it's underneath opening print, right? So we did enter on a few puts here, right? Well, first we exited our calls, right? And luckily we were able to, even with theta decay, because we choose options that are at the money and in the money, we were able to still get some profit out of those contracts. And then we went ahead and jumped into some more puts, right? And from here, you can see what happened, right? We pushed down, got a lower high, pushed into the gap at that point, popped back up, essentially tested the top of the gap. It acted as resistance at that point. We pushed down, made a lower low, closed the gap, came back up again, top of the gap was basically resistance, and that at that point, we pushed down. So if you could have waited till this lower high, you could have waited till this lower high, once we actually confirmed, the top of the gap as resistance, and you still would have got all of this downside. Now today was a pretty big down day, so you can't always count on that to happen. Even with SOXL being a triple leverage ETF, you do get those bigger swings intraday, but you can't always count on, what was this, even with the close where we pushed back up at the end of the day, we still closed down 13%. So it was about a 15-16%. I think it was 17 at one point, down day. So you can't always count on that, right? You do want to try and enter as close to opening print as possible. But today did give you that opportunity to continue to either add to those contracts with each lower high and lower low, or just give you the confidence to stay in those until we came down and actually made this higher low, higher high, right? So big dip. We did add once we confirmed the close with not even any wick outside of the gap that we had closed, right? We went ahead and added here where we went two down with that lower high, and then we went ahead and exited a majority of the position with the higher low here. We've got 50.76 is last quarter's high. It is, I believe, let's just verify. Yeah, that's last year's high as well, right? So definitely should be a pretty good point of support. Slightly above that, if we activate this so you can see it better, this is the 138.2 fib of the bull flag from the April 7 low. So pretty good level of support after such a big drawdown 2 days in a row, right? If we just bring this a little bit more into perspective, we went from Tuesday's high was what, 67.62, all the way down to touching into $49, into $48 today. So 2 days, $20 worth of move. That's, you're going to see a bounce at some point, even if it's intraday and it's a dead cat bounce. You got to see a bounce at some point. And if you look at just today's price action, market makers expected move lows right here, that, like we said, 138.2 fib extension of the April 7 low. Last year's high and last quarter's high is right here. It's a pretty good area of support. So we went ahead and we did keep a couple of runners on the puts. Let's just zoom back in here on the day, but we did take some flyers on some calls, right? And they were Feb monthlies, so we were able to get a little bit better spreads on our contracts, and a little bit more wiggle room, I would say, just in case it didn't take straight off. We did kind of expect like a V-shaped recovery, not so much of a delayed, sideways at first and then pop and then sideways. We did think that it would kind of drive back up, possibly getting back into previous day's price action. So if that would have happened that way, we still would have had plenty of profit on those monthlies. At the same time, if it didn't happen, that gives us the ability to, swing those overnight if things continue to look good. So we did on the second higher low, higher high, exit the rest of our puts. And we did exit a majority of our SOXS calls as well, but just full disclosure, we do still have some SOXS calls. We're in an hourly and 4 hour downtrend, and in a 1 day downtrend. We have kicked off that domino effect of the downside slide on the week chart, and very close to triggering a 3 combo 2 up, combo 2 down on the week chart as well, which we'll get to here in a second. So we know that there's still plenty of downside that could be had, but we've had our fill, at least for right now, for today, right? Which is why we exited those put positions, a lot of those SOXS calls, and only held a few of those SOXS calls, and then did hold our SOXL calls for the more short term, tomorrow pop, definitely end of today squeeze-ish type of thing. And then tomorrow, if we do get that dead cat bounce, we do want to capitalize on that while still looking for new entries on puts. selling calls and things of that nature to take advantage to go back to the downside. But you do have to, honor a little bit of a relief, even in a downdraft such as this, even if it is only, for a couple of hours, and that may have been it right there. But again, we're in the same position we were in yesterday. At the end of the day, we have calls that are 30-40%, not 30-40%. I don't even know where that came from. We do have calls that are decent percent up. Let's see, actually, I'll look. So that we can make sure. Okay, so spread got, obviously went up at the end of the day, but we're still 24%. So we're all right. And I'm sorry, 14%. So we're all right. With that swing going into tomorrow, we'll see, and maybe it doesn't work out like it did today, where we still were able to get out with a little bit of profit. Maybe we only break even, and, maybe we even lose money. But shoot, right now we're up. SOXL is up 4.6% in after hours. So looking pretty good so far, but we've still got all the overnight in the morning to take those into account. I'm sorry, to account for some more, movement, and we'll see where we end up tomorrow morning. But, that's how things kind of played out. Again, the calls are really for more short-term gain, for protecting against any bounce that we have here. But we are in that downtrend on the 1 day, 4 hour, 1 hour. So from a short-term perspective, things are definitely bearish. Another thing to take note of is we did flip the week and the quarter red. Actually, that was basically right at the opening print level. So if I make things a lot bigger here, you can see the week and the month flip, 59.51. Last week's low, 59.60. Opening print was 59.67. So basically, once you fail those levels, now you flip the week and the month red. That's going to give your bears some momentum, right? And then you break below overnight low. Now people will start to pile on, right? So that combined with, if we go to the internals, let's bring these up, right? And if we just look, right, the tick was, especially in the morning, it down, just pushed straight down, went to midline, played around a little bit, but then went down. Vol QD, money going in versus money going out, it was basically even at open, and then money just started coming out. 80 QD breadth did open positive, but just immediately went to the downside. It broke below the zero line and then was negative. And then you can see, obviously, by 11:30, Vol QD was in the trend lower zone. About the same time for market breadth as well. So you can see why we had that bigger downdraft during the day. But you can see how they lifted up, at least breadth lifted up at the end of the day off of that trend lower zone, which is why we got that little bit of a push up in SOXL, right? So definitely seeing some more pop overnight for right now. But again, we'll continue to just see how things turn out tomorrow morning by the time the market opens. All right, so let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit more, like we were talking about on the 1 hour. We've got this downtrend, right? Lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. We'll see what this ends up being. Is this going to be the lower high, right? Do we end up opening and moving down tomorrow morning? Right now it doesn't look like that, but it could be the possibility. But we do have to get all the way up here to what's the $61 level before we make a higher high. And even if we do make a higher high, again, it's just a broadening formation that gets formed, coming from a lower low to a higher high, just broadening out the range that we could trade in, right? So we'll see how all of that goes. If we do get that higher high, just got to be on your toes at that point, because any pullbacks that do result in a higher low, all right, now we might be starting to change the trend in the 1 hour. And we talked about this over the last couple of days, like the pullback, if we have a deep pullback, or deep is relative term, if we have a pullback like we've had over the last 2 days, we said it would be pretty quick, right? And that's what we've had. Now, we're not calling the bottom. We could continue that, but in terms of, it's not a fully drug out, 2-3 week process to go down $20, right? We did the $20 in a couple of days, and now we can see, looking at especially like 1 hour short-term RSI, we got really low, oversold. So there's going to be a little bit of a bounce. We're not oversold on the 4 hour yet. Let's go to that. Yeah, not oversold on the 4 hour yet. Still plenty of room to keep going down on the from an RSI perspective. But we did come down to the levels that we talked about that we were looking for to pull back to, that we would look at those actually, positively, as especially if we get the bounces in this the proper areas, then this still can remain bullish from a week time chart and up perspective, right? Let's bring up, the 4 hour, right? So we do have that lower high, lower low. So the downtrend is in. Again, we've got a gap right here, very small gap from 48.16 to 48.09 that's left from back here. I don't know what date that is, a few weeks ago. Still that gap here, right? Then we've got 46.79, which is that level that we kept bumping our heads into in 2025 as the major level of resistance. So now what does this do? Does this turn this into the major level of support? When things remain bullish, what was resistance gets turned into support. So is that what's happening here, right? We talked about on the not the 1 day, the 1 week chart, that we still have room to pull back before we make a lower low, right? So on the week, we've made we're in the uptrend, and we can come all the way down here. We've got the soft higher low here down at 42.01, and then we've got the solid higher low here down at 35.70. So from 42 to 35, I would think is a reasonable bounce point as well, right? We would prefer where we are right now, right? We made some good money off of shorts and off of SOXS calls. We've sold a couple of calls on SOXL as well that we've made good money off of. But okay, let's get back to the upside if things are going to remain positive, right? We've had earnings which didn't exactly give the greatest guidance. The bulk of the major tech earnings should be done by the end of this week, and that's when people kind of start to forget about that. What's the phrase, whatever. It's if you're not thinking about it often, then it kind of disappears totally from your mind. And so if you're not being constantly reminded of the earnings, I'm sorry, not so much the earnings, because the earnings were definitely good, but the guidance, if you're not being reminded about the guidance all the time, then maybe the market starts going back to normal. People just start putting money back into tech. But we do need to take notice with how far we've pulled back. There are opportunities at this point to, even off of bounce, make lower highs on especially like the day chart, where we can actually start to solidify a downtrend. So we're still doing all right, but definitely neutral at this point, right? We're not so bullish at this point. I don't even want to say neutral leaning bullish. I'm just neutral at this point, right? Because there is the opportunity for the floodgates to open and for us to continue to push down. For that, let's look no further than the 1 month chart, and we'll see here. Let's just get no lines up there. You see here, right? There is the opportunity for the 1, 2 up, 2 down. Let me make this a little bigger, wider for people of those on phone, right? There is the opportunity for this 1, 2 up, 2 down. So if this month we end up going below 45.08, that triggers. And the magnitude of that move, if you're not familiar with the STRAT, is not the low of the 1, but it's the low of the candle to the left of the 1, which is all the way down here, at 28.12. And then we've got another gap from 28.07 to 27.43. So, if we break below 45.08, I wouldn't look at you sideways if you put in some larger, shorts on SOXL, right? And really kind of the market, because chips have been a huge driver of the market. They've shown a lot of strength in the overall market. So if those start to go down, does the rest of the market start to go down? Now we have seen overperformance in areas like XLP. Coke and Pepsi have been ripping. What are the other ones that we've been seeing? But I mean, there are other pockets in the S&P that are going up. But if we're talking about just QQQ, from that perspective, if chips are going down, QQQ is probably going down too. Nvidia is a big a big percentage of the QQQ. So just keep in mind, we said that in previous videos that we're not bearish yet. We're not close to the bearish triggers yet, but we would talk about them once we got closer, and now we're closer. Only took a couple of days. That's usually how it goes with SOXL, or it's a triple leverage ETF. So you have those bigger swings, especially to the downside. They're pretty deep, but they're very fast, right? So we'll see how things continue to go. Again, I'm not calling for the drop to be over. We don't try and catch falling knives. We just set these triggers and targets on both sides of the equation, and whatever side triggers, we go with it, right? And today was just another example of that. So from the month perspective, watch out for that 1, 2 up, 2 down. From the quarter, still quite a ways to go before we're no longer in force with the 1 combo, 2 down, combo 2 up, all the way down here at 36.15 was that trigger. So we've got plenty of room to pull back. We've also made a higher high on the quarter. So even if we do continue to pull back, maybe this candle turns red and we're an inverted shooter, inverted hammer, we've still got to be patient from at least like the quarter and yearly perspective to see how that's going to play out. Is next quarter going to go 2 down to trigger that 2 up, 2 down? And if so, are we just going down to make a higher low because we're coming from the higher high? Are we trying to set this trend here? From that perspective, we're going to have to be a lot more patient. But luckily we've got plenty of action on these smaller time frames, even up to the week chart, to make plays on and make money on. So, keep locked in. We're still running, right? On the year, we did trigger that 2 down, 2 up, and reached magnitude, right? So we talked about after reaching magnitude, it's perfectly reasonable to see a pullback, right? People taking profits, just other things that line up, right? Earnings, things of that nature are actually kicking in at this point. So those are adding a little bit more fuel to the fire. Maybe we wouldn't have pulled back as much after completing the strat if we didn't have the weaker guidances that we're getting here. But it is pulling back, and we do still have a ways to go before the candle turns red. But we do have this gap down here, and that could be a little bit of a magnet, right? So if we do come down, turn that candle red, fill the gap, maybe do we turn around at that point? Is that where we turn around, or does that spell bigger trouble in the future? We'll see. We gotta, like I said, we just got done saying we need patience. We'll see how that plays out. But anyways, I've done enough talking. We've done a lot of looking at the charts. Let's look at tomorrow, right? Let's get ready for tomorrow. And oops, wrong chart. Let's first talk about the proven and repeatable strategy that we use, and then we'll get into these higher time frames and start looking at things like trend, where higher highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, and things like that may be set. So let's get there. It is. So on the chart, we have what we call our 4-hour markers. That is previous high day up at the top of the chart, overnight high right here at 56.16, overnight low at 52.72, and previous low day at 49.33. It's pretty simple, right? Higher lows at or above opening print, you want to get into calls. Lower highs at or below opening print, you want to get into puts. If you're getting into calls, your first target is going to be your overnight high. Second target is going to be previous high day. Obviously, overnight high and overnight low can change by the time we open tomorrow. So, these aren't set in stone, but previous high day and previous low day are. So if previous high, if overnight high, if we get some big jump, and get up over 6103 somehow overnight, and we open up your overnight high is above previous high day, then your previous high day is your first target and your overnight high is your second target, right? So it's just either one, whichever one comes first is the first target, whichever one comes second is the second target, right? So same thing to the flip side. If you get opening print, you get a lower high at or below opening print, you want to look to get into puts, first targeting overnight low in this case, and then previous low a day, right? Same thing if we get some big drop overnight and overnight low is below previous low a day, then especially if we open above previous low a day, then your first target is going to be previous low a day, and then overnight low would be your second target, right? So that's what we have from a scalping perspective or early entry perspective into a full day trade or half day trade, just something a little bit longer than a scalp, but less than a day. That's the plan, right? Higher lows at or above opening print, get into calls, targeting overnight high and previous high day. Lower highs at or below opening print, you want to get into puts, targeting overnight low and previous low day, right? So let's look at things from more of a longer, more of a day trade perspective. Oops, that's not the chart we want. There we go. From more of a day trade perspective, not so much just a short scalp, but maybe even an overnight play too, right? Just depends how things end up. We were left with a 2 and then an inside candle. Yesterday we talked about we got the 3-2 down and could possibly get the 3-2 down, 2 up to take us back up. You can see, early on the first 10 minutes of the day, we almost triggered it, but it ended up failing and we got that drop out. So now we've got this inside candle that we finished with in the second 4-hour candle of Wednesday. So we do have an opportunity for continuation with a magnitude as well as a reversal with magnitude. A lot of times continuations will not have magnitudes because they're just like 2 up, 2 up. But because it is a 2-1, 2 down continuation, it does have a very clear entry and a very clear exit, right? The very clear entry is the low of the 1 from the second 4-hour candle from Wednesday. That's down here at 50 flat. And the magnitude of the move is the low of the 2, which was the first 4-hour candle from Wednesday. So obviously not a lot of magnitude right there, right? The 49.33 to 50 flat, about 67 cents worth of price movement. So obviously you wouldn't want to take it for just that move alone. You would be looking for some follow through on that continuation, right? We've got the gap right here at 48.16, 48.09 that we talked about. So that could be a good first target to shoot for on a day trade, especially if there's not a lot of momentum with that move to the downside. Now, if we do get that momentum to the downside, we're looking at 46.79, which again, that was that major support resistance that we couldn't get through in 2025. It also is the 50% level of 2024, so it's a pretty important level. And we could see a bounce there, but the next levels to the downside, if we really get to rocking like we have the last 2 days, obviously the gap open, which also coincides with the month and quarter flip. The gap opens at 45.08 and closes at 45.15, which would be obviously your next target, and just slightly below that is your which fib extension, the 100% fib extension of the April 7 bull flag right here at around 44 flat. So got a couple of targets to the downside, but those targets that we're talking about are also areas of support, or looking to be areas of support, because we're coming from above this time instead of from below like we had all of 2025, right? So look for support. Don't get too far over your skis. Yes, we had 2 big down days today, but that doesn't mean there has to be a third one. And then even if you are a believer that we have a lot further to go down, again, it doesn't have to happen in 3 straight days. So watch for a little bit of a digestion tomorrow, maybe sideways action, or just even a slow, drop down. And there are going to be quite a few people out there trying to maybe call this as the bottom, looking at it as the major support level after the breakout at the end of the year or beginning of this year, however you want to look at it. So there may be some people trying to jump in here, which could just give us a dead cat bounce, right? We've got this 4-hour downtrend line right here. Last month's 50% level, which can also act as resistance as well. So just pay attention to if we do bounce. If we do go to the upside, let's put in some type of higher low to continue that movement to the upside before going too heavy into things, right? Now, if you're going short-term trading, scalping, things like that nature, have fun with it. Do whatever you need to do. But if you're looking to swing something, especially a full day, overnight, maybe into next week, we really got to look for some higher lows and some trend change, at the very least on the 1 hour. All right. On the day chart, looking at this, we did not get the 3-2 down, 2 up. Oops, get the right chart. Here we go. We did not get we have the opportunity for the 3-2 down, 2 up. We didn't get it on the 4 hour, but we do have the opportunity for it here on the day, which would give us magnitude back up to Tuesday's high. 67, 62. So still a pretty substantial move, but we've got to get above 61.03 to trigger that, right? Now, if we continue to the downside, again, we've got these gaps to the downside. We've talked about these targets going to the downside. And if we really get another day like we had today or Tuesday, 39.44, last quarter's 50% level is going to be that target for us. So you can see on the RSI, still not oversold yet. So we'll see how things continue to go. Even, in times where we've bounced without being totally oversold, we were down further than we are now. So it's perfectly reasonable to expect a further pullback, right? If we're looking at last year's high, last quarter's high as the top of the previous range that was being traded in, and this is the breakout, right? This can just be looked at as the retest of the breakout. And it doesn't mean it has to bounce exactly off of this line. You can continue to explore down in here for a little bit of a time before you push up. So, even if we do continue to push down, maybe even fill this gap, again, it's not the end of the world. Watch that week chart, right? It's not until we start making those lower lows on the week chart that we really got to start to worry about things. So we've got a little bit further to go before that happens. But again, from the day chart perspective, we would just have a two down continuation. So obviously a trigger, but no magnitude for a move. It's not a reversal or an inside continuation like we have on the 4 hour. So we just have targets that we're shooting for. All right, now to the upside, again, we talked about the 3, 2 down, 2 up. Even if we do reach magnitude there, again, let's not get too carried away with where we might go. The market maker's expected move high isn't too much further above that. So only 2 days left in the week. We'll see. Made a big move to the downside. If we were making another big move to the upside and get above market maker's expected move high and test last month's high, that would really show some strength from the bulls, right? Either that or a last gasp attempt, right? But we'll see. We would have to see once we got up to the 71.98 level. So I don't really expect that to happen tomorrow. But yeah, that's what's on the table to the upside. Let's just go to the notes here. We've looked at the charts a bunch. Let's look at the card numbers, right? Thursday, February 5th, there'll be 228 trading days left in 2026. Close price on Wednesday, February 4th was 53.19. And we know that we have gone below that 59.51 level, flipping the week and the month red. So to flip those back green, we've got to get back above that 59.51 level. And we are starting to get a little bit closer to flipping the year and the quarter. The quarter and the year red as well. So got a little bit further to go down to flip those, but those are on watch at this point because of the amount that the amount of pullback that we've had in the short amount of time that we've had, knowing that it can continue a little bit further, right? So if we were to flip everything back to the red side, full time frame continuity to the downside, it would be quite interesting, and it would be interesting to see how long it stays like that, right? If we have more than a few days with it like that, then the tide might be changing from a longer term perspective, right? But if we just flip them red and then flip them back green in a couple days, maybe a week. A lot of times that can be looked at as like kind of shaking people out, right? Or market makers getting their prices that they want, right? So just continue to watch that. But anyways, I'm rambling on. Expected move for the week was plus or minus $8.31 from Friday's close price. 53.49 was that low, and you see we poked below it earlier today, getting all the way down to 49. So we'll see if we stay within that range. Again, 70% of the time, market makers are right. As of right now, as of close, they're right. But intraday, we did definitely break through that level, right? No gaps above right now. And we know that we closed the gap here, so we can get rid of that. Should have done that. Sorry about that. But we do know where our gaps are below, right? We always got to keep those in our notes. And again, we're real close to closing this one. We talked about from a scalping perspective, you want to look for higher lows at or above opening print to get into calls, or lower highs at or below opening print to get into puts. From the 4-hour time frame chart, if we get that 2-1-2 down continuation, that triggers at $50. But again, only 67 cents of magnitude there. But if we do reach that, we've got the gap close at 48.09 and some other extended targets listed out here. To the upside, we would have that 212 up reversal, so we would trigger at 55.12. Magnitude is 6103. Since we are in the face of a downtrend on the 1 hour, the 4 hour, and the 1 day chart, we do want to keep in mind that we might not make magnitude, and just keep note of where there is possible points of reversal. And so we've got those listed out here for you in the intermediate targets before you reach the magnitude. All right, we talked about on the day, if we continue to the downside, it's just a two down continuation, triggering at 49.33, magnitude of the 4 hour move, the triggering at 49.33, and we've got our extended targets listed out here for you. If we go to the upside, that does give us that 3 2 down 2 up, triggering at 61.03. Again, the magnitude 67.62. We are in a downtrend, so we do have these intermediate targets, but like I said, we've got some pretty big movement in after hours so far in SOXL. If that momentum continues through the morning and then even after open, right, there's a good chance we could reach that magnitude. And so we've got some extended targets listed out here for you as well, right? Big moves in the last couple of days. So that's why we've got a few more targets out here for us. And it's just, you just got to play the market, right? If you're not able to watch the charts as all day, or not, I don't want to say all day, but if you're not able to frequently watch the charts and make sure that your no rules that for your trade are being violated, you may want to just sit out right now. The swings are a little bit too big. You may be able to take smaller losses on days where there's smaller swings, and that gives you time to let it play out through the day, so you don't have to just sit there watching the chart or anything like that. But right now it doesn't seem to be that time. We're getting those big quick moves, so sometimes the best trade is to not trade, and you don't need to trade every day, right? Sometimes you may have real big days, and those will make up for days that you didn't trade. So just keep that in mind, right? From the week chart perspective, we triggered this 2 up, 2 down, and we reached magnitude. We've reached some of the extended targets. And then we do want to note that 3 combo 2 up, combo 2 down does trigger at 48.09. So just keep that in mind. I'm sorry. Let's make sure that I'm not misspeaking. I believe it is the bottom of the gap. Actually, yeah, we can just look at it right here. Come on. What's going on? There we go. The gap is 48.09. So 48.09 triggers the 3 2 up 2 down on the week. Just show you here real quick on the week chart so you can see it. Right, here's your 3 combo 2 up 2 down. All right, and you see that combo 2 up starts here at the gap. So if we close that gap, that triggers this 3 combo 2 up, combo 2 down. All right, so that would trigger at 48.09 and give us these extended targets here. All right, if we are to make a 3 on the week, we've got it, like I said, get back up to that 71.98. Getting the 3 2 down 2 up would be that first step in reaching that 71.98. But even if we do get a bounce tomorrow, I don't know how confident I am that we would get to that point. If we did, again, that would be showing a lot of strength for the bulls. And yeah, we'll have to see if that plays out. But we don't like to make predictions. That's why we got the triggers and targets for both sides of the equation. It looks pretty bearish right now, but if things do turn around, those are the triggers to the upside. On the month, we talked about how we've really got to start looking at this 1 2 up 2 down a little bit closer now. That triggers at 45.08, and that magnitude does take you down all the way to 28.12. We've got an intermediate target here at 37.50, but that's a lot of magnitude there. So that's again why we're saying we wouldn't look at you sideways for loading up on either puts or selling as many calls as you can, right? Capitalizing off of that big magnitude that we could reach, right? A lot of people didn't think that we'd reach the magnitude of the STRAT on in 2024, right? That took us all the way down to 721. In all truthfulness, the magnitude of the STRAT was 621 for last year, but we got down to that 723, and then we bounced, and you've seen the type of bounce that we had. So again, it's push and pull in the market, and they like to say all gaps get filled. So we've got a lot of gaps going all the way down to the 28.12 level. So you got to keep that in mind, and you can't just be out here thinking that it's not a possibility to go all the way down to 70. I'm sorry, to 28 from 70, but it can happen, right? So just be prepared. On the quarter, we talked about how we triggered and made the magnitude for the 1 combo 2 up, combo 2 down. So it's reasonable to see some pullback. Now, if we want to stay above the 5076 because that keeps the combo 2 up in place. But the overall 1 combo 2 up, combo 2 down triggered at 36.15. So as long as we're above that, we are okay, right? Once we get below this 5076, now we got to start worrying a little bit more. But if we are able to turn things back around, get back up to that 70.08 level, then obviously we've got 74.21 as the all-time high, and then our extended targets out here past that. And then on the year, we ran the 2 down, 2 up strat, triggering at 50.76, reached the completion at 70.08. So again, same situation as the quarter. Just want to see things start to turn back up, and if they do, then we've got all-time high as the next target, and then our extended targets listed out here for you. All right, so there you have it. Those are your triggers and targets for everything from the scalping perspective all the way up to the 1-year chart. Rambled on a little bit more today. Sorry for the late post of the video as well. Had a pretty busy day. Brain's kind of scattered right now, so just tried to focus in here enough to make the video because I do want to make sure that I stay true to the schedule that we keep, and keep putting out this information for folks, because I really hope it's helping, right? It's a free channel. We don't ask for membership fees or anything like that. So if you can, give us a thumbs up. It does go a long way to help the channel. Even giving it a share goes a long way as well. But especially if you're one of those consistent viewers of this channel, we thank you again for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, thanks for checking us out. Hopefully my rambling today didn't bore you too much. Come back and join us for another video, and hopefully you'll have a little bit more fun if you didn't in this one. But anyways, we just tried to jam in as much information as possible without taking up too much of your time. So we do hope you enjoyed it. We'll go ahead and wrap it up at this point. We'll do it like we always do. If you're watching this Wednesday night, hope you get some good rest tonight and wake up refreshed tomorrow. If you're watching this Thursday morning or Thursday during the day, we hope you got some good rest last night, and we look forward to getting out there and trading with you.